But if you don't have books, you can order them through Moms for America. I can actually send you the link, and it'll take us a little bit of time to get through this schedule. So Robin and I are going to be teaching. So here's some of the books that really brought me into my fruition as far as, knowing things. And Tammy and I were talking, and she says, why do we keep learning this stuff? And I said, well, do you read the scriptures once? Of course you don't, because you forget. You get new insights, you learn things newer and newer. And I was trying to think of how many times I've done this series. I know I've done it at least 5 times.
Wow.
So, and I still, as I read through things, I'm like, I don't remember that. So you can't just see something 5 or 6 times and be proficient and learned unless you go over and over and over.
I believe it's in the Majesty of God's Law on the last or the next to last chapter, and then it talks about what the law is going to look like.
The restoration. Yeah, we might go through that after we finish. Because
that's another hard book.
Well,
but it's wonderful.
Part of both of these books, the Making of America, is really the 5,000 Year Leap, and
with the Federalist Papers.
Federalist Papers, and this is really kind of like that too. It's the 5,000 Year Leap with Federalist Papers, but then it's in the back chapter, and it is the restoration, what you will need to do and know to restore after things break down. So that's a really good one that we should probably cover, the restoration.
Probably. Yeah, maybe we could just do certain chapters or something.
Yeah, there's just 2 of them in there.
The Majesty of God's Law. And the thing of it is you can read it, the chapter, and at the end it has questions. And so when I first did this, those of us that were in the group at Sue Richardson's house, we had about, 8 to 10 ladies that came every week. And so we did a telephone call. And so what we would all do is we would read the chapter, and then one sister would read the questions, and we'd do like a question and answer type thing. And it was really kind of fun, but some of the ladies kind of fizzled out and wouldn't get on the call, and we never made it all the way through.
It's more pertinent now
to
where we are than it was 10 years ago, right?
So, yeah. We're seeing so much unfold. Even the first time I did this, how much has changed, and I'm just like, whoa.
I feel like this administration, even with their numbers going down, they don't care.
No,
they're putting the pedal to the metal. They want to get as far down the road of this change before anything can come up, and that's why elections are so important. That there's an audit, that they really check who's voting, that they're now flying in immigrants and putting them from Springville to Idaho to everywhere.
Well, did you hear, I think it was on Hannity night before last, he was talking about how the Democrats were doing farming, no, what was the word? Seeding.
Where they're seeding illegals and then they aren't.
No. What they're doing is they're creating people, fake, phony people.
Oh.
And there's a word for it, and I can't remember what it's called.
Like on the record? For voting records?
And stuff the ballots with these phony people. They made up people.
Yeah, they said they did that partially with the census. You could see it because sometimes in the census, people had died, but more people were voting than were on the census. So there's something that's happening, which is this fake ID, and
they're making these fake people, and also so you can get phony passports. They create a person. They open a bank account. They actually create a person that's not really a person.
That's hard.
Yeah, well, they've been doing it for decades. And and there's a term for it, and I can't remember it. But anyway, so that's why we need to know the Constitution. This is an acronym, LEJSASR. Julian Jackson came up with it. And this is the Constitution. And I will email everybody this little form, and you can print it out. If you know all this, you know more than 95% of the country. So it's the legislative branch, it's the executive branch, it's the judicial branch, it's the states, the amendments, supremacy clause, and ratification. And if you know these things, you know more about the Constitution than most people. So, we're going to start today with the Constitution. Was the philosophy with the Founding Fathers was that you would have freedoms, but not only freedoms, the freedom to buy, the freedom to try, the freedom to sail, and the freedom to fail. And, you know, it's not a bad thing to fail. Colonel Sanders knocked on 10,000 doors before he sold his Kentucky Fried Chicken recipe. And look what it turned into, this empire. And same thing with Thomas Edison. He tried over 10,000 times to perfect the light bulb. He failed. They both failed 10,000 times. So it's not a bad thing to fail because it keeps you trying to perfect until you are a success. And this is the problem with with socialism and communism. Everything's got to be equal. You don't want to be a failure. You know, all kids get participation trophies because we don't want them to feel bad because they had a loss. I'm sorry, but this started, I remember when my kids were in little running around soccer games and everybody got the participation trophy, and my husband was incensed by it because you didn't have to try. Everybody got a ribbon or they got this little teeny trophy and they got their pictures and they were happy and they thought it was great. And you know, that's a nice thing. Our friends still think it's a great thing, and I think it's horrible. I really do. I think what you need to understand is that is not freedom. That's not freedom. Okay, so we are going to talk about the L, the legislative branch. Okay, and well, actually, let's not yet. We're going to talk about the Constitution first. You know, the Founding Fathers, they met in Philadelphia, and they were all in this closed room for 4 months and got this beautiful document. And they went on September 17th in New York, and they signed the document. And then after only 8 days of hearings, Congress approved the Constitution, and they sent it to the states. And this took a little bit longer. This is, you know, the states here. And it took a few years, and then 1791, it had the ratification. It was signed off by 2/3 of the states. I think Rhode Island was one that, they called them Rogue Island, because they wouldn't sign it, they didn't love it, you know. But you had to have, 3/4 of the states to be able to sign the Constitution. So anyway, that all happened between 1787 and 1791. And to begin with, they taught the preamble, kind of like a mission statement. They had the preamble. Those of you who have your book, just before the key in the back is this cute little hand motion for memorizing the preamble. And so I just printed myself out this. I photocopied and cut it out. And I'll show you how easy it is, okay? We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, to provide for the common defense, to promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Look how easy that is. You can teach your kids that, and probably 99.9% of the kids out there would never know it, but that's our preamble. So it's kind of our mission statement of our Constitution, and it defines what the powers are to be in our Constitution. All right, so the legislative branch. Okay, so the L under LEJSASR, okay? So, how many houses are in Congress? 2, all right. So we have the House of Representatives and we have the Senate, okay? So if you think of the legislature, it's like an umbrella, okay? And you have two branches under this umbrella. The Congress is that umbrella, and so you have the House of Representatives and you have the Senate. Now you see them talking that he's a congressman, and so you always think of the House of Representatives. I don't know if it's slang or not, because really it's Congress that's the two houses of the legislature. But so you have the House of Representatives, and there are, does anybody have any idea how many members are in the House of Representatives?
Isn't there two from each state?
No,
What?
that's Senate.
That's the Senate, two from each state.
Any idea?
340 something.
How many are right now, or could be?
How?
It's different.
435.
So that's the crux. 435
35.
people making rules for 300 million.
330 million, correct, right. So to be a congressman or someone from the House of Representatives, they are elected how many, what's their election cycle?
4 years.
No,
Two.
2 years.
Oh.
Yeah, that's okay. That's why we're reviewing this. So every 2 years you see Nancy Pelosi run. She is the Speaker of the House, and she is third in line from, you got the President, Vice President, and Speaker of the House. Okay? And how did she get that position?
Majority.
Really?
Was she supposed to? Or how did she?
How did she?
A majority?
Okay, a majority of Democrats. So whoever has the majority, so it's called a quorum. Anybody understand how many it takes to be a quorum? It's 50% plus 1. So right now, okay, and then the senators, before I move on, how many senators from each state?
Two.
2. And every state has a representative of 2. So you got little Delaware and you got Texas, and they have equal representation, okay? So that's why a census, we were talking about the census. A census is really important because it counts how many people in our country, and then that way there is delegated how many representatives in that state. Do you remember who was the first person elected in Utah with our 4th delegate? We received a 4th person. It was Mia Love.
Oh.
And we had her come here and speak a couple of times. So the state of Utah had grown. Now, we have 435 senators. We can never have more than that unless they vote to add, but it's been that way since, oh my goodness.
You mean Congressman?
I'm sorry, congressman. Yeah, congressman, 435 congressmen, House of Representatives. And I think it's been that number since 1826, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, so you have to be what age before you can run for Congress?
25.
25. That was AOC.
AOC.
AOC. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Anybody know who she is?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's the nut job from New York. And she won Congress, and she's a nightmare. But anyway, she was 25 years old. And how long do you have to be a citizen to become? 7 years. Thank you. All right. And so the census, at the time of the Founding Fathers, there was about 30,000 per congressman. At the time, there wasn't 435. They expanded and added more in the early part of the 1900s. But when I did this book, this lesson the first time, it said that there was about 500,000 people per congressman. Well, I took 435 and divided it into 330 million. It is now 770,000. That's how much per representative it's grown in just 12 years.
That's 50%.
Yeah.
That's a huge population.
That's a huge population. Yep.
If you aren't teaching them the Constitution,
Yeah.
they don't know our laws.
So that's why it was so important to know how many people are in each state. Some states, people are moving out. A lot of people are leaving New York because of their radical policies. And California too. Yeah, we're getting a lot moving here. And so when that happens, when the state starts to shrink, then their population goes down and then they lose representation. And that's why Utah was able to get another congressman because our state had grown. We're over 3 million now in the state of Utah. And so if you look at 770,000, we got 4 senators right at 3 million. So worked out perfect. But you have to have a state shrink and open up a spot before another, if there's growth somewhere else. I don't know how Utah got in line, but we got a 4th congressperson.
Well, because New York and California have each lost one,
Yeah,
because they're shrinking.
they're
Well, I
shrinking.
bet the Midwest, the Iron Belt, the Rust Belt, that they lost millions of people and jobs. They had to go somewhere else.
Right. So that's why the demographics really plays an important part, because those people are representing you. They're representatives, okay? And I remember I went to Denver, a group of us, and we taught in a weekend all 4 books. It was like a marathon. And we had a bunch of people come, and Al Jackson was standing there introducing himself. Did I tell you guys this story? Maybe I did, I didn't. And he said, we are a democratic republic. And this guy jumped up and he was absolutely incensed that he would use the word Democrat. And he said, you got to understand. And he said, sir, calm down. The word democracy means the people. So a democratic, we the people, republic, representative. So it's the people having a representative, a democratic republic. But he thought he was saying we were Democrats. And no. This is why it's important that we understand the language so that you don't fly off the handle at somebody. The guy was 100% wrong. And he and Al afterwards, Al had his arm around him and explaining that. That's why it's so important for us to understand, because we could actually have strong misconceptions of what's going on. And it's just because of our lack of ignorance. And it's not mean ignorance, it's just that if you study this stuff and you understand the language and the terminology, you can talk, smartly. I don't know. Wisely, intelligently. So, okay. So, we're not going over every detail, and I've got about 25 minutes before Robin gets it. All right, so let's talk about the structure of the Senate. How often are the senators elected? Every 6 years, right. And so every 2 years we have an election, right, because we have the Congress. And then somewhere in that point, governors are coming in, and then every 4 years you have the presidential. But every election cycle, 1/3 of the Congress runs for election. Okay, so you got 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. That's your whole. Okay, so every 2 years you see a change, and that's why you see number-wise, there could be changes in the House or the Senate as far as the majorities. So you see the guy from New York, the majority leader in in the Senate, Chuck Schumer. And right now it's a tie. But because it's a Democrat president and vice president, the vice president is the president of the Senate. And so right now it's 50-50. So if they vote, Kamala Harris gets that final say. That's a quorum. And so she gets to vote yay or nay on whatever they vote for. Okay? Yeah, it's a lot of power. How old do you have to be a senator? 30, okay? And how many years do you have to be a citizen to be able to run? It's 9 years. Yeah, 9 years. And like I said, the vice president is president of the Senate. And then not Harry Reid. He just died. I know, I'm going to rot in hell. Harry he died, and I thought, okay, is St. Peter going to be there to usher him in? I mean, talk about a scary Latter-day Saint. You know? He was a known liar. Okay, that's all I'll say. But anyway, Chuck Schumer, because they have that one extra vote from the vice president, he's the majority leader. And so he's kind of like over their whole group. And Nancy Pelosi is the over the Speaker of the House. So she's in charge. So Chuck is kind of like the Speaker of the Congress, and she's the Speaker of the Senate. She's Speaker of the Congress. All right, and who has the power to do an impeachment?
The House. And then the Senate has to approve it, isn't it?
So, yes, the Senate will approve it. And then who sits in as the head of an impeachment?
Speaker, isn't he?
No?
Chief Justice.
Chief Justice.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
We did see that.
Roberts.
Yeah.
So when they tried to impeach Trump the first time, Chief Justice Roberts sat in on that impeachment and kind of ran the show. That second time after the election and Trump had lost and they tried to impeach him again, Roberts would not sit in. At least he had the decency to not sit in that time. But he did not sit in. Do you remember who sat in for him? I think it was Jerry Nadler, wasn't it? I tried to block that out.
Like Humpty Dumpty.
That's why it was a kangaroo court.
Yeah.
because it wasn't even legal. The Chief Justice wouldn't even sit in on it. So, and then always now, years ago, they changed the inauguration date to, any ideas? January 20th. Yeah. January 6th was the phony insurrection. So apparently they're having a special insurrection thing, the Democrats. They're going to go to the House and make a mockery of it and make something up, and it's ridiculous. Okay, turn the page. So, and what I'm doing is I'm giving you the different, in the Constitution, these are the different articles, okay? So I'm at Article 6. Let's see if I needed to, well, no, I'm still on Article 5. We talked about a quorum. So each of the houses of Congress are self-sufficient and self-contained. And they make the rules. So if anybody, does something wrong, they can expel a member. And you have to have 2/3 of the people to do so. And I don't think I've ever seen anybody expelled. Have you? Well, that's not true. That Craig guy in Idaho, do you remember? He was in the bathroom with a young man, and I think that kind of kicked him. Yeah, it was a really big scandal. But and then ordinary decisions are made by vote. So anytime you see on TV, they say Senator such and such, yay. So it's always yay or nay, and then they show you the yays or nays. So they're pretty open and show you those type of things. They don't keep things secret. Each House member is to keep a record of all its proceedings and publish them unless certain parts must be kept secret because it is in the public interest to do so. So they're supposed to be crystal clear. They're the representatives of the people. They're supposed to let the people see what's going on. So, and we know that doesn't always happen. All right, so Section 6. Each senator, and the first time I heard this, now you got to remember this was 12 years ago. Each senator is paid, any idea? Senator and congressman?
I'm thinking like $200,000.
$174,000 a year. I know. 12 years ago I heard that. And I'm like, what?
How did they all become millionaires?
Well, exactly. And I remember Julene going, well, you have to understand, it's really expensive in Washington, D.C. And I'm like, okay, $174,000? She goes, well, you're going to have to realize that they got to take care of their family in their own state, plus pay for their housing. And I'm still going, $174,000? I couldn't believe it. So anyway, but that's what they cannot give themselves a raise unless everybody votes on that. And so anyway, they've had that obviously for 12 years. So it's a lot of money, but you know, Jolene, where they rent. So I went back a few years ago to my sister-in-law's. They lived in Annapolis. My brother-in-law was a football coach at Navy. And so we went and stayed there, and then she drove me over to Jolene's house. And I know they're just renting, but it's kind of an older Tudor.
Oh yeah, everything's old.
It's real old. I mean, the house is like 1920s, you know, maybe 1930s. But it's a beautiful home. She pulled up, she goes, wow, that's at least a $3 or $4 million home. And I'm like, what? You know? I mean, it looked like something from the Avenues that you might sell for $250, you know, at 12 years ago. I'm like, 3 or 4 million? You gotta be kidding me. I can't even imagine what it is now. You know, it was a large home, probably 7 million, yeah. So it's expensive there. It's expensive. So I guess you have to have a lot of money there, so I don't know. But anyway, that's what they make. But so Harry Reid went in from Nevada. He was a lawyer, and he probably made decent money. He came out of there tens of millions. Barack Obama went in. He was $2 million when he went in as president, left with $40 million. You go, how do they? Nancy Pelosi, they think she's worth about what, 130, 150 million dollars, and she's still in Congress. You know, it's unbelievable, absolutely. And we all know that they're doing insider trading, you know, so that they can make money. And this is not what the founding fathers wanted us to do. Okay, so section 7.
There's the retirement plan too, though. It's not just their salary, it's what they get for the rest of their lives.
Their health, everything,
Yeah.
all their packages, yeah. But it's that insider trading that's the biggie.
It's the biggie, yeah. So, and it's really deplorable in my opinion. So we're going to talk right now.
What's insider trading? Where they,
Well,
Okay, so think about, you know that they're going to approve a bill on something for a company.
oh, okay.
And you know about it beforehand, so you invest in it before everybody else knows.
like
See,
Moderna or Pfizer. Possibly.
yeah, Martha Stewart got word, and she sold a stock, for like $1,500. She went to jail for 6 months because she got insider trading. These people get insider trading all the time, and they're worth tens and hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's okay.
Well, they found loopholes
Yeah.
to get their family involved. So Harry Reid got so rich because he went through his sons. Biden went through his son.
Yes.
Pelosi's gone through her husband.
Right.
And then they don't have to be investigated because it's not directly them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Or they get earmarks for, like in Nevada, earmarked for a bridge, that there was a bridge just down the road, but Harry Reid got it for a bridge. And they're like, why do you even need it? The state doesn't want the money. We don't need a bridge there. But he owned all the land next to the bridge. Yeah.
so
so they
stuff
do-
like that.
People own the property for railroads.
And railroads, things like this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interstates, if you know, or you know that they're going to change the laws for drilling or change the laws. There was one big one that they did for ships, that they had to flash freeze their fish or something like that. So the shipping got changed and different people, and just millions and millions of dollars are known when you are making the laws and you know what the ramifications are going to be.
And
But that's one of the problems we have in Utah. We've got some very high-powered developers that are now in our government making the rules. They're not looking after us.
no, they're looking at how much money they can make.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the same goes with some of these NGOs, non-government
Yes.
organizations, and religious groups, that they say, the federal government says, we will give you so many tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars to re-establish these refugees. They get the money, they establish them in your neighborhood, then your tax dollars has to provide for those people that you never said you wanted. But that's the trick. These are the games, the shell games that are being played with our tax dollars to benefit the few and not the many.
And
Look
my,
at the millions that the Clintons made off of our uranium here.
oh yes,
Yeah, all through
Selling it
and
to
then
Russia.
Off the
Ukraine, wasn't it?
off of Haiti. Hardly any of the money went to Haiti.
Oh yeah,
Clinton
that was the Clinton Foundation for the Haiti. I think they got like 10 cents on the dollar. I mean, they
Horrible.
made tens of millions of dollars. I know at one point they were worth about $300 million.
The Clintons.
Yeah. So off of that
And they've
foundation.
been like poor Arkansas lawyer.
Yeah, they came into the White House. I think they said their net worth was maybe $1.5 million or something like that, and they came out with tens of millions. And then Bill Clinton would go and give a speech for $1 million, you know, because Hillary was Secretary of State, so it was a pay to play. And so they made a ton of money so that they could have access to the White House. And here Bill Clinton's over there giving these, you know, fancy speeches for millions of dollars. You know, I mean, this is not what our founding fathers wanted to set up.
Solution to stop that from happening.
They should do it, but nobody's regulating themselves, right?
Right.
It's like,
There's no moral
right.
values that they
Right.
have.
Right.
Like the what is it, the bank robber putting rules on himself.
Yeah.
He's
We
not gonna
can't
do it.
stop them cheating in an election. I don't know how we change that.
Well, and as we know, we need to fix the 16th Amendment. We need to fix the 17th Amendment. The 17th Amendment is no longer... See, the Senate used to be picked by the state legislature, the two best people, and work with the state legislature and stay in the state. And then they would travel occasionally to say, this is what we need, and what do we need to pay our fair share to keep the government going. Do you remember when Trump came in and he started putting those, what was that tax called? When they brought in stuff from China. Tariffs. That's what our government, that's how they made money, was on tariffs. Taxing goods from other people and vice versa. You know, that's how they took care of it. Well, that stuff went away. And the government is so ingrained. I mean, healthcare and, you know, just like you said, Moderna and all these companies, they're making so much money off of that. They were not supposed to be doing that. That is so far away from the Constitution.
And right now, really the one we should look at is education.
Mhm.
It's the huge amount of money from our government is in around education. So you have a lot of thieves in that playing area.
Yes.
And if we don't cut off and keep our education local, without their trainings, without their things through all the unions, right, then we don't have
And see,
control
this
of our
is what
children's
the
education.
states should be handling education.
Yeah.
Not the federal government. And that was brought in, was it before Jimmy Carter or about the time of Jimmy Carter, the NEA?
It was, what is it? It's the education.
The National Education Association.
Yeah. And Reagan was going to get rid of,
And he didn't.
but he didn't. That
He
was
didn't.
the big
He-
compromise. Or
It was the
compromise.
big promise he didn't keep. And he didn't realize how hard it really was going to be. He came in and said, I'm going to do this. See, Trump didn't care what people thought. Reagan kind of cared. And so, but Trump, he came in and says, I'm going to take care of these things, and guess what he did? And that made him very unpopular with all.
Very dangerous for bank robbers.
Yes.
Better call the politicians.
So you got it. So let's see.
I can see corporations and stuff or whatever it wants, but I just can't comprehend. If I have $300 million, when will I be happy? Because how much do I need to spend?
Then it's power.
Yeah.
It's power, definite power. You know, I mean, when you start getting, there was a meme. Did you see that meme yesterday with Bill Gates? How much money does Bill Gates really need? He does. It's not the amount of money. It's the power and what he's doing to the people and being involved in the vaccines and health care. He has no place in that. It's not his business. It's just the amount of power that they can lord over with people. Thank you so much. So I've got about 7 minutes left. So we're going to talk just a little bit about the procedure of passing laws. So when you get the House of Representatives together and they want to put together a law, and I'm just going to really give it in simple terms, this book really gives you the nuts and bolts, and you can look at it. But so anyway, they get together and they put together a law or groups of laws. Then it goes over to the Senate. Okay, see if we can stump you. So the Senate takes a look at it, and they can look at it and they can say, no, we don't like any of it. Or they can say, yeah, we like it, but we want to change some things. So they can change it, and they send it back over to the House of Representatives, and they kind of look it over, and they kind of, well, I don't know. And it can kind of go back and forth until everybody kind of comes to the general consensus. Then, where does it go? To the President, correct. All right, so when a bill arrives on the desk of the President, he has how many days to consider? 10 days. Yes, Janet got it. And if he takes no action on it, the bill automatically becomes law. Excellent. And if he objects to any part of it, he can send it back to the Congress, and it cannot become law unless they satisfy the President's objections by what? How many? 2/3 of both houses to override the President. Okay, so they can override it. The President can veto, but if you've got 2/3, they can override the President, which I think is a great thing. You never see it happen, but it can happen. And if the Congress presents a bill to the President and then adjourns, and I've seen this happen, adjourns before he has had the 10 days to review it, the bill shall not become law. So I remember one time there was a sketchy bill or something. They gave it to the President and they adjourned. And if they adjourn and they don't stay in, it automatically cannot become law. So they've got to stay in session for it to be. This provision gives the President the right to have a bill 10 days for review before being required to make a decision on it. When this amount of time is not available for review, the Congress must take the responsibility, and the bill will not become the law unless the President signs it. This is what they call the President's pocket veto. Have you heard of pocket veto? That's what a pocket veto is. Next week, I'm going to turn it over to you here. It's going to take a couple of minutes. Next week, we're going to learn Congress has a certain amount of powers. Any idea how many powers? 20 powers. And we're going to talk about those 20 powers next week.
I'm going to put some books up.